Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chesswise. Today we are at the next topic, that is the endgame studies explained. We are at the 72nd position of our topic. Today we have got a king and pawn endgame position here. It's white to play and win. The position is somewhat tricky though. It looks very easily winning at first, but there are some complications. So let's get down to the position quickly. It's white to play and white can choose between three moves here. Pawn is attacked on f2, so most obvious moves f4 and f3 both are there. Let's look at them one by one. After f4 we see the base pawn is now g3 and black makes his whole plan to keep the pawn on g3 attacked. So king f2, and now we see that after g4, which is most obvious, black attacks the pawn on f4, forcing him to go f5, and he keeps the g4 pawn attacked. Let's see. After king f4, king h4, it's all about opposition in this position, but there are some tricky elements. After king e4, we see that white is unable to free himself. The main problem is g pawn cannot move because f5 is hanging, and after kg5 there is the move king f3, when we see that white is unable to make any progress because kg6, king g4, kg7, kf5 is drawn. Only other option f6, gf, kf6, then again kg4 is drawn. So white can try the move king h5 here, but then again comes king f4, which forces white to go back with king h4, and again we see that the position is drawn. So there is no progress possible by white. Similarly, instead of g4, if white plays kg4, then black can just wait with the move g6, and we see the same type of situation what we discussed when the pawn was on g7 and the white king was on g5. Similarities are there. We can see king can't go to g5 because of kg3, kg6, king f4 drawn, and we will see again a repetition taking place after king h4. There will be kf3, kh3, ke3, and again the position is drawn. So the most obvious move f4 fails here. Next we investigate in the line f3 now. After f3 we reach the same kind of position as before. Black has both ke2 and kf2, which are enough to equalize. After, let's say, ke2, it's slightly better to play kf2 because we don't allow any variation related to kg2, but although even there we have the move ke3, which makes the position again drawn. So king f2 is slightly preferable. Here again after kg4, ke3, f4, king comes back to f2, and we reach the position which was very similar to the previous line. And here again after the move f4, also we can go with the move kf3, kh4, and simply g6. When we see that there is nothing much in the position, king comes back to h3, and again we go ke3. And after kg4, all we have to do is attack the g3 pawn. So the g3 pawn, the base pawn, needs to be attacked. That will not let the white king go to g5 and capture the g6 pawn. And again this is drawn. So as is the case with all the study positions, the usual way doesn't lead to win. White has to win slightly in a different way here. White is going to use the opposition in some cases and maybe push the g pawn first in some lines, forcing black to block with g5, and in many variations we can then try to break the position with the move f4. That is the basic idea in this line. Let's make the moves and see how it pans out. After the move kg2, now black has to make a choice whether he wants to go ke2 or kd2. King d1 simply allows kf3, and then after ke1 there is g4. That was one of the points which we discussed. kf3, ke1, g4, allowing g5, king g3, and whatever is played, let's say ke2 or d2, white uses f4. Now if f pawn is not taken, we can capture fg or just promote the f pawn to queen, and after the capture gf4 king f4, we see that the g pawn just prevails. The king is out of the magic square of the pawn. So the main line of the analysis is the move ke2. When we see the pattern or the idea what we discussed repeats. After g4, again black has nothing much to do, because if he plays g5 as we discussed just now, again there is the move k g3. Black needed the king on the e3 or the e4 squares at this point in order to stop the f pawn from moving. The move kg2 is helping white get the opposition or force the black king remain away from the f4 square. Now after the move kd3, there is just f4, and when we see that after gf, kf4, kd4, g5, and the g pawn again wins. But black here has a better attempt. Black can play the move kd3. This time he will try to attack the f pawn. If we play king f4, there can be the move ke2. So white simply avoids that. White plays the move king f3, snatching the opposition, and again the main move g5 will be seen. After g5, now we see the difference. This time the black king is control of the f4 square. After the move kg3, we see that black can play the move ke4 and hold the game. But here white tricks black by snatching the opposition. He goes kg2 here. When after king e4 and king e2, we will look at both these lines. Now after king e4, kg3, we force the black king to go away. Now the black king has to keep control of the f4 square. So k e5. Now king f3, forcing black to go kd4. Now comes k e2, k e4, f3 check, and now white gets the opposition in all the lines. After k e5, k e3, we simply push the black king away. So after k e6, k e4, k f6, k d5, we have discussed the case of pawns on the same file. So these three squares are the key squares when the king will be able to take the pawn. And here after the move king f4, instead white just uses k f2, again snatching the opposition. We see this post line again, k e5, k e3, k e6, k e4, k f6, k d5, k g6, k e5. And as we have discussed in the case of pawns on the same file, the king approaches the pawn and captures the g5 pawn. So finally here one of the main line is the move kd4. After ke2, winning the game is very easy, because here white can simply go with the move kg3 here, forcing the black king away from the control of the f pawn, and after kd3, f4, gf, kf4, white wins. We can say ke2 is an inferior choice for black. We can easily say that the main variation is the move kd4, because here after kg3 we can go ke4, and similarly after kf3 we can go kd3. Here white has to use the unusual path, allow the black king to control the f4 square, but even then white wins. After the move king f1, this idea is very important. Black will try to keep the control of the f4 square. So after ke4, ke2, kf4, f3, and now we see that black is unable to do anything, because after kg3, king e3, by force the white king will approach the g pawn. After the move ke e5, ke e3, king e6, king e4, white again captures the g pawn. Thus we can say that whenever there is a case of two pawns versus one and there are no other pawns on the board, that time the technique of just pushing the extra pawn first doesn't help all the time. Many a times we get the case of pawns on the same file and snatch the opposition and then convert the game. So this idea was slightly unusual here, but this is one of the endgame techniques. I hope you will find this lesson useful and instructive. Do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for your time.